Some people don't talk about their problems, not because they don't have any, but because they learned early on that explaining themselves didn't change much. They listened more than they spoke. They handled things quietly. And over time, staying silent started to feel safer than opening up. If this sounds familiar, it's not random. People who don't talk about their problems often grew up solving things on their own. They learned how to sit with discomfort without asking for help. They adapted. At first, it wasn't a choice, it was a response. When someone doesn't feel understood, they stop trying to explain. When someone feels like a burden, they stop sharing. And when someone realizes that opening up leads to judgment, they close off. Not out of pride, out of protection. Psychologists often point out that silence is rarely emptiness. It's usually compression. Thoughts get stacked, feelings get stored. And instead of being released, they're managed internally. That's why people like this often appear calm. They don't panic easily, they don't react dramatically, they seem steady. But internally, there's a lot happening. They replay conversations. They analyze situations. They think deeply about consequences. They just don't say it out loud. Not everyone who stays quiet lacks trust. Some people stay quiet because they care too much. They don't want to worry others. They don't want to change the mood. They don't want to be seen as difficult or needy or dramatic. So they become selective. They talk about surface things, daily events, random thoughts. But the real weight stays unspoken. Another reason people don't talk is because they've been misunderstood before. They tried explaining how they felt, and it was minimized, rushed, or compared to someone else's pain. After that, silence feels cleaner, less risky. So instead of saying, "I'm struggling," they say, "I'm tired." Instead of saying, "That hurt me," they say nothing at all. This kind of emotional restraint takes energy, and over time it can turn into emotional fatigue. People who don't talk about their problems often feel exhausted without knowing why. Not because life is harder for them, but because they're carrying it alone. There's also a strong sense of responsibility that comes with this mindset. They believe they should handle things themselves, that asking for help means weakness or failure. So they become the listener, the supporter, the one others lean on, but rarely the one who leans back. Interestingly, many of these people are very self-aware. They understand their emotions clearly. They just don't externalize them. They process internally, quietly, slowly, and because of that, their silence is often mistaken for strength. But strength doesn't always mean not needing support. It sometimes just means not knowing how to ask. Another thing people don't realize is that staying quiet can become a habit. At first, it's situational. Later, it's automatic. You stop reaching out even when you need to. You convince yourself you'll deal with it later, and later never really comes. This doesn't mean these people are emotionally closed off. In fact, many of them feel deeply. They just express it privately. They write, they think, they sit with it. They wait for it to pass, and sometimes it does. Other times it lingers. If you're someone who doesn't talk about your problems, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're emotionally distant. And it definitely doesn't mean you don't care. It means you learn to survive by being quiet. But silence shouldn't always be the default. Not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because you deserve relief. And relief doesn't always come from handling everything alone. Sometimes it comes from being heard without fixing, without advice, without judgment, just understanding. So if this video felt personal, that's not a coincidence. It means you recognize yourself. And recognition is usually the first step toward change. Not dramatic change, not forced vulnerability. Just the quiet realization that you don't have to carry everything by yourself.